class. I'm going to be talking about the workability and the disadvantages of the affirmative plan of action. First, I would like to say that talk a little bit about pre-Megan's Law, before Megan's Law was even put into effect. New Jersey was stated to have a very steady amount of decline in sexual offending, and it was declining. And then as soon as Megan's Law came in, the amount of decline wasn't as significant. And then I have from CBS News, Megan's Law, no deterrent to sex offenders. There's a quote here that says, "Because sex offenses rates began to decline well before the passage of Megan's Law, the legislation itself cannot be the cause of the drop in general." So just because the law is passed, there really is not much of a marker to see how much of a decline there is, because there was already a very significant decline to begin with. What I'm going to say to workability is that the proposed reform to Megan's Law will fail to become an official working piece of legislation. I know this because, first of all, we are already a divided nation with so many topics as it is, such as gay marriage, gun rights, abortion, so many things. Something this radical would not be able to become an official working piece of legislation. Such as we've had civil rights movements back in the 60s with such controversial topics as civil rights and things like that. The groups who were being subjugated had the right to assemble. They had protests, things like that. And with the National Center for Exploited and Missing Children, they've reported that there are 686,515 registered sex offenders. Now, these aren't even counting the unregistered sex offenders. These aren't counting the associations for the treatment of the Association for Treatment of Sexual Abusers and the International Association for Sexual Offenders. So 686,515 isn't how many people would be supporting or be defending sexual abusers' rights. They are still people, they are still citizens, they have rights. And although they've already messed up and have shown that they aren't the greatest citizens in America, they are still citizens and they have their rights. Now, the disadvantage, I'm going to go ahead and say that the plan of action created by the affirmative fails to keep children away and protect from sexual offenders. Let's see. Such harsh punishment for what they're proposing, it's just not the best way to go and punish certain people. I have a statistic, or sorry, a quote here from GoodHousekeeping.com. Amy Angler goes on to say that if notification process is too stigmatizing, offenders may not register, which is part of the law that has been shown to be most helpful to the law. So if there's any kind of registration, that's what's going to be helping the community. Chantal said that the community is benefiting because there's the punishment, but to what extent are they benefiting? These people are being ostracized in a society where we treat our civilians well, and we're not really showing them that we mean, or that they mean so much, you know, or as much as we would like them to say. Article by the constitutionalfights.wordpress.com states that tougher laws in other states have led to situations such as in Miami, where sex offenders live under bridges. It said new legislation in Florida eliminated most of Miami as a living site for sex offenders, according to a story by the Associated Press. In 2007, 5 male sex offenders started living under the Julia Tuttle Causeway when they couldn't find a place to live. The number of offenders living under the bridge and nearby grew up to 52. 52 sex offenders living under a bridge. I mean, that's not very humanitarian of, you know, such a great state. Kevin also explained for a claim that we would not be keeping that we would not be keeping some of the sex offenders that we're not keeping the sex offenders away from the children as efficiently as we would want to. And he's saying that we need to be a little more stricter with that, but the stricter we are, the more they're going to want to avoid it due to certain punishments. They move from place to place. Offenders may avoid community notification of the crimes under Megan's Law. They'll just move to a different location, and then they'll go as unregistered, which, you know, makes them a lot worse than they already are. Also, Kevin, with the same point that we're not keeping them away from sexual offenders, despite myths of stranger danger, the vast majority, which is an average of 80 to 90% of sexually abused children are molested by family members, close friends, or acquaintances. So, although we're getting rid of strangers and telling our children to not stay or to not talk to strangers, the majority of people who are being who are sexually offending or sexually abusing children are either family members, close friends, or acquaintances. And although we could keep our children away from family members and acquaintances, I mean, there's still a high chance of it reoccurring.